And if you take a second, close your eyes and be fully present as I do the Lord's Prayer the way Jesus spoke it over 2,000 years ago in Galilee. Awun duashmayanat padash shmach, ta'tay malkutach, nehwit suyanach, ekanna duashmaya abbar hawlan lahmat sunkanan yawmana, واشوق لان حوبين إكنا داب حنان شوق لحيوين لا تعلن نسيونا إلا بصا من بيشة مثول دي لاخي ملكوثة هاي لو تشبحتا العالم عالمين Amen. Well, very eventful week on the news. But before I start my talk, just a quick reminder, Dr. Erko is doing his Aramaic School of Light session this Saturday. I'm not sure if registration is closed, but if you haven't registered yet, I'm sure the foundation can try to accommodate you if you contact us. Again, I wouldn't miss these sessions because he gets really deep. So if you are a student of the Bible, if you're trying to get a better grip on the scripture and on the message, on the essence of the message of Jesus and the prophets who were before him, that definitely would recommend that. So with that said, I wasn't sure where to start today. The news has been, and if you don't watch the news, more power to you. But it feels like the Holy Land where Jesus was from, and where he came to bring a global love and understanding and a humanity-based message that's been lost over time. But luckily, there's always been that truth and that people carrying it forward. But that part of the world right now is hurting. It's I can't think of a single person in that region, not just in what we call today Israel, Palestine, is hurting. It's that the ripple effect of that are definitely global, and we probably will feel them here economically. We'll feel them obviously with the news. And when the whole thing started, I was very emotionally touched, to say the least, with the events that took place there, the carnage, the death of any death. If you've heard me speak before, hopefully you know by now that any human being being hurt is not acceptable. No matter what religion, no matter what nationality, no matter what skin color, no matter what label you put on humanity. That it's not acceptable for any one of us to injure another one. That's why I came straight back to Jesus, came back straight to his teachings, and of course the most obvious one that jumped at me as one of my favorites that I felt like I need to go there because that's the message that we all need to have before we get swept in the pro and con and who started things and who has the right to do so. We're constantly as human beings, our history is filled with the same patterns that we continue to repeat, and it aches my heart that we can't go past that. And the blame is collective, but definitely if you heard Dr. Erko speak the last couple of weeks, the people who lead us have a responsibility. Jesus warned many times in his message, in his time with us on earth, of the people who will mislead you, of people who will, if you recall, Dr. Erko spoke about Jesus's talk in Matthew 12:46-50, and I'll read it again because it's very powerful. I know we're repeating, but it was almost prophetic to talk about these topics with the events that took place. because it gave me a place to go and immediately get grounded. And hopefully you felt the same if you're following the news. Jesus in this message. I just totally missed my whole place. Sorry, I said chapter 12 is chapter 10. There are some things I want to cover in chapter 12 as well. But do not be afraid of those who kill the body. This is he's instructing his apostles and instructing us. But who cannot kill the soul. So kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Those are not the people to fear. But above all, be afraid of him who can destroy both the soul and the body in hell. If you didn't listen to Dr. Errico's talk last week, go to the internet and to YouTube and listen to it, because he talks about the him and explains who the him is. And the him is not this mythical being, or the him is definitely not God. The him is the leader, is the people who misguide us. And if you look at our history, there are a lot of people who use the Bible, who use good human logic to mislead people and ultimately have a lot of innocent people pay the price of their mistakes, of the leadership's mistake. And this is where we are. We've been led by kings. We've been led by, I think in the Jewish history, there was a short period of maybe it's not short, it's maybe lasted hundreds of years, where they were led by judges. And judges were not people who went to Yale school, law school, or Harvard Law School. Those were people selected by the community because they were good people. In the time of Jesus, it was the people who sat around the town square, and around, if there was a well there or a few trees, they sat there and people came to them and they adjudicated their issues and found peace in the community. And they applied common sense law instead of national law or legal law, which tends to be very problematic. And as much as we try to improve it, we're constantly adding and setting precedents and adding and changing and going back and changing some rules that we set up. So that's where Jesus was very, very careful, even with the law. He said, do not, first, you need to follow the law that you're living under, because if you don't, that law will take care of you. You'll end up in jail, you'll end up bankrupt, you'll end up in a lot of trouble if you mess with the law. He knew that God does not punish. It was community that punished and society that punished. And we set those parameters. We tell you what's acceptable here, or what might be acceptable somewhere else is not acceptable here. You better follow it, or follow the system to change it. But you can't mess with that. The law that Jesus talked about is a global human law. That's the law of God. That's the law of the kingdom. And he used very simplistic words when he talked about these things. He used look at. I mean, I'll go straight to where the core of my topic, though I want to go a little bit even further in history and talk about how we obtain things. So I'm talking about Jesus, Matthew in chapter 5, verse 44. This is the message that came to me when I was talking earlier with Dr. Errico, when I was meditating about what to speak about. But I say to you, love your enemies, bless anyone who curses you, do good to anyone who hates you, and pray for those who carry you away by force and persecute you, so that you may become, this is the key. So why do these things? So you may become sons of your Father who is in heaven. Okay, when I opened the Lord's Prayer, I said, Awun Dwashmaya, our Father who is in heaven. That's the presence that I invoke when we start these sessions. That's the presence that we invoke every time we say the Lord's Prayer. And the goal for Jesus was to make us like God, to remind us of that spiritual origin that we come from, who causes his son. But this is the law of God. who causes his sun to shine upon the good and the bad, and who pours down his rain upon the just and the unjust. For if you love only those who love you, what reward will you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same thing? And if you salute only your brother, what is it more that you do? Do not even the tax collectors do these things? Therefore, become gemire. I spoke about gemire, all inclusive. Translated into perfect in English, it makes it near impossible. To be all inclusive, it is possible. To try to include everybody in your love, to try to include everybody in your life, in your decision making. That's what we are struggling with today. If you think about we're people who are talking about global warming, people who are talking about polluting our oceans, people who are talking about that's the community, the homelessness. I just came back from Portland, Oregon, my previous town that I called home, which I still feel is part of me and is home as well. I saw the pain, and now we changed laws there. And now we're working with those laws. It takes time sometimes. The laws that I'm talking about are related to drugs. So there is a big addiction issue there. I think it was hidden. It became more obvious because it's legal. So people are not running away from the stuff they were doing. Now they can do it in the open or be open about it. But it's causing other societal problems that we're trying to fix. And in all of this, we need to work together. So to be all inclusive and with your resources, with your heart, with your soul, is to work together. Just like God is all inclusive, our Father in heaven is all inclusive. That's how he concludes that what we call the Sermon on the Mount. It's obviously that the writer of Matthew felt that this was so core to the movement that he made it part of like a long speech. I think he gathered a lot of Jesus's talks and put them together in a very cohesive way to establish the law of the kingdom, how to become a part of this. And the other piece that I was talking about in 12, when I opened, I meant 10, and then I said 12. Now let me go to 12. And the section that I want to read of chapter 12 in Matthew are verses 47 through 50. Then a man said to him, behold, so this is Jesus was hanging out at somebody's house with the disciples and apostles. And the man told him, behold, your mother and your brothers are standing outside, and they want to speak with you. But he answered, saying to him, who told him, that guy, who is my mother and who are my brothers? And he pointed his hand to his disciples and said, behold, my mother, behold, my brothers. So this is the key to that lesson. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and my sister and my mother. So what was he doing here? Why, if you grew up in traditional Christianity, Catholic, Greek Orthodox, the Virgin Mary, that's what they call her, his mother. They make her really, they put her on such high standard, and it's a big central piece of that religion. Jesus himself did not drop everything and run from the table when they told him your mom is outside the door. He said that you are my mother, you are my brother, you are my sister, who are doing the work of God, who are following the teachings of the kingdom. So what was he doing here? He was getting at the core of what's causing the trouble today in Russia, in the Ukraine, in Syria, in Palestine, in Israel. Everywhere we look, those hot spots are struggling. We saw, a very nasty version of this tribal wars in Africa not too long ago. And we tend to forget them, but we keep repeating the pattern. We just pick a different spot. India had a struggle. Pakistan had a struggle. Afghanistan has a struggle. It's like you can't look at a spot in the world, and we have it in the West. And we tried. We're improving. Every society is trying to improve. The problem is we tend to also take a lot of steps back. As soon as things get hard, we take steps back. That I love the. This is a story straight from the Bible, from the traditional, Jewish writings. I'm going back all the way to Genesis, to the time of Isaac. And I'm reading Genesis chapter 26. And if you know me, I don't usually go back into the Hebrew Bible that often. But chapter 26, verse 19. This is Isaac. Actually, before verse 19. What the story is Abraham, his father, Isaac's father. Abraham is a great story of a man who came into a foreign land, and actually, interestingly enough, he came from Iraq, what we call Iraq today, Beit Naharain, the land between the rivers, and he migrated all the way based on listening to his intuition and listening to his God, which was the new God that they were discovering, that the God, the same, we think it's the same God that Jesus had. But that God, and I think in the case of Abraham, it is because it's a simple God, but that God has evolved many times. And again, Dr. Errico has done quite a bit of work recently about, why does God get a bad name in the Bible? Because people cannot attribute a lot of their actions or the way they think sometimes to God. So in this case, I'm not going to bore you with reading the verses, but and it's not boring. It's kind of fun little story. But what I wanted to bring here is Isaac, Abraham had dug a lot of wells in that area because water is hard, and that's what they're suffering from right now with the siege and so forth. That they're cutting off water and all kind of aid and supplies. But because water is so hard, wells are so important. So Abraham dug wells, and there are stories about his wells and his conflict with the people around him. But he always came to a good solution and exchanged sheep and things like that to kind of keep things peaceful, and did not put his foot down every time somebody claimed his water or did something to it. So now fast forward to Isaac, his son's time. The people of the land where he was living had already destroyed a lot of those wells. They didn't like them. Tribal issues, again, you need the Bible is loaded with that. But what I wanted to bring up is Isaac's attitude. Okay, Isaac dug a well, and the people of the land came and claimed that well. They said, no, that's not yours, it's ours. He put all the work in, but he was a stranger in that land. So he was, so it's like, okay, he didn't fight. He didn't draw a line in the sand and said, okay, this is my well, I dug it, I can prove that, I am right, and started a war there. And he was at that point, he was becoming a strong tribal leader. He's successful as a farmer. So he has a little bit of wealth. And he starts scaring them because he's starting to build his own. As a stranger, he started bringing his own aura or showing more power. So he backs off, and he goes a little bit, and he asks his servants to dig another well. And it's kind of funny that even the names of the wells, he gives them the funny names. One of them is called Satan, or the adversary, Satana. But they also, so he moved on, dug a well. And they came and they said, no, this is ours. So he said, okay, fine. So he went further out and dug another well. By then they were like, okay, this guy is not going to fight. So to see Jesus has turned the other cheek, it's very applicable here. And he moved and he dug another well. So they said, okay, just he can have that well. And he just sat there and settled there and built his financial empire, or whatever you want to call it at the time, based on that third well. Or I think that's about the number he dug. What I wanted to bring here is like you can become so stuck in your claim to something you think you own, and that's at the core of a lot of these conflicts. And they refuse to budge when somebody more powerful, somebody more greedy, somebody different pushes you. Now, the psychology of those people, the people who actually push that way, that's their issue. That I believe, and I've talked about this before, is that we can claim ignorance. Ignorance is like the only excuse, and that's the one sin that Jesus came here and sacrificed his life for. So it's one sin, and if you read it in Aramaic, it's one sin. It's not the sins of the world, it's the sin of the world. And the sin of the world is ignorance. The people who are acting that way are ignorant. The people who come and pick a fight are ignorant. The people who put their foot down and say, nope, I'm not budging. This is something I dug. It's my well, and they fight back, or they keep coming back to reclaim it and creating conflict. That's ignorance. When you open your eyes to the kingdom of heaven, to the core message of Jesus, that's when that goes away. That's when you start understanding that, first of all, if we work together as a community, we're better off collectively. If we continue to work together based on our tribal alliances, that's why I talked about Jesus's family, because he not only was breaking away from the tribe, he was breaking away from the direct connections, the direct blood connections with his mom and his brothers and his sisters. And he was establishing the original connection, the connection with everybody who is a child of God, which is all inclusive. That's what these people are missing. And the people who die, whether they die because they're fighting, they're misled. They're given a story or being oppressed to a point of no return. Psychologically, that again, it's ignorance, but their leaders are feeding them that. There are countries that are shipping weapons. They're supplying both sides, and there are leaders on the other side who are doing the same exact thing. This is what's happening everywhere. This is what's happening in Libya. Libya just had what would have been a natural disaster, but really it was negligence. Libya had people, a dam break and totally destroy a town and bury people, demolish homes with the families asleep in them. It's not because of nature being angry with these people. It's because the country has been in war for so long and people are so negligent that the leadership they'd much rather spend money on tanks and bullets than fix dams that are protected, that are needed both for irrigation, for the livelihood of those people, as well as taking care of them so the dams don't break and demolish towns. But it's more the ideologies that these people believe in and the way they look at their enemies. That's what's causing these issues. And who pays the price? As I said, it's two people who pay the price. You rarely see the leadership. Maybe we'll see a bit more hurt right now because Israel is angry. But the reality, most of the time, it's the children, it's the elderly, it's the women, kids, peaceful people, the store makers, the bakers who try to feed the town during these cases. Now they probably have a little bit of dusted wheat and no water and no generator to make bread to feed the people, because I know the people of Gaza. My mom is from Gaza, so I hear the stories, and we in her family there is a bakery that during these types of times, which they keep repeating them, they keep happening, they would make the bread and leave it outside for families to come and grab it. But now they probably can't even supply that without gas and water. So those are the people who suffer. The leadership does not change. So the people who get killed are either misguided and they're fighting a war for a leader that's not even on the front line, or the innocent who are on both sides are hurting tremendously. But look at the flags that we're seeing today. The flags are based on, we Americans need to get the Americans out. We English, we need to get the English out. So again, we go into this nationalistic approach. Like, why is 20 English people more important than the 7-8 million Palestinians and Israelis who are being bombarded? Why aren't we all trying to help and stop this madness and stop from repeating it? That's the Jesus lesson of love your enemy. So to make that bridge, there is no leader on either side or globally. I can almost safely say I can't think of a single leader in our time now who would stand and say, listen, we need to solve this problem. You two need to give each other a hug and a kiss, and then move on to the negotiation table and negotiate fairly, because you both have to survive this, or your people will continue to die and continue to live unsafely. That's Jesus. And that's why we continue to do this work, is because though I am, my family of origin is Palestinian, I am now a follower of Jesus. I am a human being and I love everybody. And you can't change that in me. As much as I can see that the anger that's out there, I have Jewish friends, I have Israeli friends, I have Palestinian friends. I happen to be a follower of Jesus, but I know a lot of people who are also Muslim. They are dear to me. And the ones I don't know, my heart breaks for every person I'm seeing in a body bag. It doesn't matter if they're saying, we're looking at this side of the border or that side of the border. The border is stupid. These people can live together. There is abundance. They rely on each other most of the time when they're not fighting. And the same thing needs to happen in Libya. It needs to happen in Iraq. It needs to happen in the United States, in our neighborhoods. I'm starting to see this here. Okay, we have people with flags on their cars and stickers on their cars, and other people are starting to feel like, oh, these are the enemies. They're your neighbor. You need to figure out how to sit at the table, maybe yell at each other when you don't agree, but don't start loading up. People are loading up guns now. They're buying ammunition. This is here in the United States. We're not very far. Our democracy is fragile, and we need to take care of it. We need to start loving our neighbors again and loving our enemies, if we're labeling them that way, or we are in trouble too. This is global. Jesus is global. And I will continue to say, if we don't listen, we'll continue to repeat. I will always have hope. So that's the message. That's what the gospel is. There is great hope. That's what Jesus came with, the great hope. It's always going, as long as there is a breathing human being, we will have hope. And as long as one of us is speaking this truth, there will be hope. So with that, I'm going to close this. I think I covered the things I wanted to cover. If you have any questions, please submit them through the Q&A. I'm not seeing any of them. Any questions? And if so, because this has been a taxing week for me emotionally, I will not, I will stop here. So I'll give you a couple seconds. If you have any questions, go ahead and shoot them at me. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I hope that this message gives you hope and more than anything, opens your heart to love during this time. Send your love to everybody you see hurting. Send your love, more importantly, to the people right near you, because those are the ones that you can affect immediately. And God bless you. And I see one question coming here, so let's see what it is. And the question is, okay, how can we support you, Reverend Hani? I am good. I really am. I'm good. Keep sending me love. So anytime you think of me, think of love. And anytime you think somebody needs love, send them love. That energy. If you have ever heard me talk about love, my personal experience with it is like the first time I saw I don't have any children, so the closest I have is like my nephews and nieces, on both sides of the family. And every time I met one of them, they felt the most precious thing ever. So the first one, I felt like, I'm not going to love anybody like I'm going to love this kid. And then I met the second one, and I managed to generate the same amount of love. So now I have twice as much love instead of half for this and half for that. And I continue to find that. And that's the power that we have built into us, into our spirit. So love, send love to me, to everybody. Where in the Bible does it speak of specific chosen people? The chosen label is in the Hebrew Bible, and the reason they were chosen is because they were the first ones to discover this Yahweh, this Ethia Rabba, the Allah. Okay, that Abraham brought it in, and they felt like they understand this global presence that is our origin, and their mission was to take it and spread it, and be the leaders in the world. See, this is the part that I wish is taught in every synagogue, is that we have the responsibility of taking this goodness, this great good. We call him the good God, God, because it's good. There is no definition for that God, but this God is full of abundance and love and giving. So you're supposed to take that, the people who get it, and go spread it. Now, even Jesus, if there are a few knocks on Jesus, but not many, he when he was doing it, and there is a reason for why he did it that way, he felt like he needed to reach, his message initially needed to reach the Jewish people, mainly because they could relate to a lot of the assumptions that are built into his message. So, but then after that, he opened up. And even during his ministry, he started reaching out to the Roman soldier. He reached out to the Samaritan woman. He started opening up and talking to people he is not supposed to reach out to. So, and then his apostles and disciples, the early movement, very quickly discovered, like, we have something global. Now we can make it limited and make it all about the non-important stuff. Circumcision, the type of meat you eat, things like that. Your origin, your blood, your tribe, those are the things that were the Jewish religion at the time of Jesus were restricting. And I think to this day that those are the things that restrict. Though technically you could convert into Judaism if you believe in that Allah, but they dismantled that. They removed the requirements to join the movement. So that's the global. That's back to what I was talking about in Matthew towards the end of chapter 5. So be all inclusive. See, that Jesus was a genius when it came to that, because he said be all inclusive, like our Allah is all inclusive. Okay, so then he didn't say be all, all only Jewish inclusive because this is the God of Israel. He didn't do that. Now, if you go back to the prophets and so forth, sometimes they felt like the God of Israel because they were fighting against other gods. Now we have basically, mainly, at least in the, I guess what's like this, that standard religions. I'm not talking about Buddhism, Hinduism, because they do have different versions of God, and it causes problem for some of these God-based religions, monotheistic religions, is that they had other gods and they had this one God, and that was the battle for the longest time. Jesus came and basically he made God this presence, this father-like presence, a parent-like presence that gives us everything we need. And he said we need to focus on our behavior. How do we implement the kingdom in our day-to-day instead of basically spending the time with, serving this God, who, like feeding him on the altar and things like that. Those are the things that prophets spoke against, because they saw that if you are children of this God, then you take care of your community, you take care of the strangers, you take care of everybody. And that's what I'm calling you to do, is take care of everybody. Don't just go, I'm pro this and I'm pro that, because the Israeli people need to come to a point where they tell their leaders, listen, we are tired of living in fear. We are a democracy, then we need to be all-inclusive. And all-inclusive means every Israeli gets to vote. Every Israeli gets to become a president. Every Israeli can have the same opportunity. That includes the 1.5 million Palestinians who are Israeli Palestinians. And that includes all the nations around you, and figuring out, declare your border, and so you can live in peace and have the right to live in peace. Those are, but again, I'm talking about a political system. They need to work within those systems to obtain that peace. Otherwise, it will continue to be this mess, and it will just be another tragedy and another tragedy. And it doesn't matter where the tragedy has the biggest impact. It's awful. Whoever is hurt is hurt. It's one of my brothers and sisters. If they are working within the kingdom, and if they're awake to that, and if they're ignorant, I can give them that break, and I still will pray and love them, pray for them and love them. Hopefully that answers that chosen question, but it's throughout and carried. And Dr. Erko maybe has a few specific verses. Nothing has come into mind right now. Is the spiritual authority in the kingdom? Is there spiritual authority in the kingdom? Your heart is your spiritual authority. Your soul, I call it the heart, but it's really is your spiritual nature guides you in the kingdom. If you want specific teachings, go to Jesus. He lays out how you need to behave to be a good citizen of the kingdom. But there is no structure. There is no one leader. Even Jesus, when they called him, hey, good teacher, he said, what do you call me good teacher? There is only one good, and that's Allah. Okay, so the absolute good, because Jesus got angry. As I said, sometimes he even refused to deal with a non-Jew who's wanting to learn from him. But then they reached his heart and said, even the dogs get some scraps off the table. It's like, oh, your faith, and then helped, right? So sometimes because he was being watched. No, the only authority is spiritual authority, is the teachings of Jesus, and that's it. There is no person that needs to guide you through this. And for the longest time, again, there are a few people who've known me throughout my ministry. We don't have any structure. We speak. And I'm not the leader of this movement, and neither is Dr. Erko. We are just a part of this movement, just like all of you. And that's why we always count on all of you, whoever hears this, to go out and make the community, the world, a better place, with your own special talents, with your own ways of doing it, with your own expression and heart. And that's why just give, and you will receive. That's the awesome thing about this, is you'll have that joy. You'll be able to sleep at night and know that, you know what, I'm not a part of the problem. If anything, I'm part of the solution, and I will continue to be a part of the solution. I'll continue to bring peace. Did Jesus really walk on water? Like physically walk on water? No, not that I believe, because if you really, so you can read into the Bible what you were taught, or you can read the Bible with a fresh set of eyes, and then you'll see that if I wrote today that I was in Portland, as I told you last week, and my wife and I walked on the river, which is one of our favorite places to walk in Portland, downtown Portland. Now, if you read it and you translate it to, Aramaic, or from Aramaic to English, and you hear, oh, Hani and his wife walked on the river, you don't think about it twice when I say it. It's like, oh, there must be a little walking path by the river. That's where they walk. So Jesus walking on the water, they were by the seaside, and he waded in to help them because they were. I've seen people nearly drown in water this high coming off boats, and I have many examples because I spent a lot of time around the water. So and these are people who are good swimmers, but sometimes they panic and they have a hard time. That's what happened in that episode. I'm not going to get into Jesus walking on the water. He was not different than us. That's why he constantly was saying, I am not different. I'm just, he called himself the Son of Man, the human being. He never said, I'm special and I'll never reach that special level. He was teaching them. He was like constantly telling these apostles, go and do this. And if they open the door, do this. And if they don't open the door, do that. He wasn't saying, oh, just, here's a superpower, go do these things. Very practical and very important to know that, because then you become as responsible as Jesus is and was. And his teachings become applicable to you. You don't go like, oh, he walked on water, he can love his enemies, I am just human. We're all just human, just like he was, and we're all responsible. So thank you, Note. You're very welcome. What can we do to bring Palestinian and Jewish together in peace? Have the Torah, Quran, Gospels, but still hate each other. Again, this is a leadership issue in religion. So then we take that power away from the religious authority, and we put it back in your hands, in my hands, in the hands of the people, and hopefully this pain opens up more hearts to say this is not working. The nationality and the passport identification is not working. The stealing land. The reason I gave you the story of Isaiah, here is an early patriarch of the Jewish movement. He dug a well, and Isaac. He dug a well, and when they came and pushed him, he just walked away and dug another well. And then when they pushed him, he dug another well until he found a place where people let him stay, where he needed to stay to make a living. Okay, and I'm sure if they, they could have written the whole Bible of him digging wells and moving on. But that's the wisdom of Isaac. That's the wisdom of Jesus in loving your enemy. If he saw them as enemies, he would have fought them. Isaac would have. But he knew he had to live amongst them, and he just continued to work until he found peace. And they backed off. That's what the Palestinians and the Jewish people. It's not really a Palestinian and Jewish. It's a political entities that are fighting each other. The people do need a solution. So if you have the heart and the mind, and you know enough about this to let your Congress people, your representatives, to ask them, just bring peace to the area. I sent in one of my early days as an American, I sent a letter to the White House saying, please just bring, look at both sides and figure out a way to make life good for both sides, not for one side over the other. And that's been the problem, is we have countries that benefit, we have leadership that benefits from supporting one side over the other. The munition that the US is shipping to Israel and those rockets, they create jobs here. That's my tax money, your tax money. So we can send the message to our representatives and tell them, can we please just, stop doing that and maybe do aid for both sides? Figure out a way to get them to acquire land, pay for the land that they took away. Maybe people will be more peaceful that way. I don't figure something out, but that is not the system that we have today. But thank you for asking. I wish if you make me the king of the world, I would think that I have some better answers than what we have today, but I probably would fail in some areas as well. So that's why I don't really have a standard answer to those questions. What state was Jesus in when he walked on the water? He was, as I said, he was just walking on the beach, really, on the shoreline, and he saw that the apostles were struggling and that they were shaken, and so he basically waded through the water and helped them out. But Christianity, the religion, wants us, just like they wanted his mother to become a key figure. It was a recruiting technique early on in the movement, because some other religions had these super mothers who were virgins, who slept with gods and so forth. So it was appealing to some crowd and became mainstream Christianity. But the core, it's Mary is a very marginal figure in the Bible, if you read it carefully. But the religion and the dogma made her huge. So again, the story of Jesus walking on the water, we love to hear that in church. I wish that they would never teach that moment, because it's that simple. It's like the guys were struggling, he walked over, he helped them out. He waded in the water and helped them come off and get to shore and get to safety. But translation, people wanting to read into it what they want to read into it, and now it becomes that we can't be like Jesus. And that's a big lie that Christian religion has today. We can be as good, and he even said, you will do these things and you will even do better. So go and do better than Jesus. Love your enemy, love your neighbor, and love yourself, which is very important. And until next week, God bless you, and thank you for joining us. Maybe we'll see you on Saturday.